Looking for the best pre-built gaming PC 2023? You've come to the right place. Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. Now in this Prebuilt Gaming PC 2023 buying guide, we will get you everything that you need to know to buy the best gaming PC for you. And of course, we'll make specific product recommendations for 1080p, 1440p, and 4K gaming pre-built PCs. Whether you're looking to dominate in eSports games like Valorant or League of Legends, play titles like Elden Ring at 4K, or if you're just looking for a budget gaming PC to play Roblox, we'll help you find the best pre-built gaming PC 2023. With that, let's jump into it. The number one critical thing that you need to know is whether you're going to buy a pre-built gaming PC from an original equipment manufacturer, or OEM for short, or a system integrator, or SI for short. Wait, Jason, what the heck do those things even mean? And do they really matter if you just want to buy a pre-built gaming PC? Yes, they do. System integrators, or SIs like Skytech, take standard PC parts that any PC builder would use, and they assemble them into a PC. So for instance, they take a motherboard from MSI, a graphics card from Gigabyte, a power supply from EVGA, and they assemble them into a PC. But original equipment manufacturers, or OEMs for short, those are companies like Dell, HP, Lenovo, Acer, and others. They actually manufacture their own versions of these parts, and often those parts are not universally compatible, what we call proprietary parts. While that often saves money and makes their products a little bit cheaper, it can also mean a more difficult time upgrading that OEM PC in the future. So you need to decide, what kind of buyer are you? Are you the kind of person who just wants to turn on your pre-built gaming PC, have it game and be awesome without wanting to tear it apart or upgrade specific components? Then you can buy from either an OEM or SI without worry. But if you're the kind of person who will want to tinker with their PC, pull it apart, put in a new CPU cooler, put in more memory, then you're going to want to only get a pre-built gaming PC from system integrators. In our links in the video description below, which we will keep updated, we'll identify which pre-built gaming PCs are OEMs. Next, should you buy a pre-built gaming PC or pay to have a gaming PC custom built? In a custom built PC, you do get to select every single component from a list of components that are available to that system integrator, while a pre-built gaming PC is one where the system integrator creates a standard build depending on what parts they have. A pre-built gaming PC might list that you're going to get a B550 motherboard, for instance, but may not specify the exact model and manufacturer, though some do. In a custom configured PC from someone like Origin PC, iBuyPower, or CyberPower, you get to choose, say, a B550 Aorus Elite motherboard by Gigabyte, but you are now relying much more on your knowledge of exactly what parts go well together, and they do tend to charge quite a bit more for that level of customization. So what's the better value? If you feel confident in your knowledge of being able to select specific parts, for instance, properly pairing a CPU with a graphics card, and you don't mind paying the price premium, then a custom build might be right for you. But I believe that for the vast majority of buyers, pre-built gaming PCs offer significantly better price to performance at every budget level, and that's what I recommend. The number one most important thing to focus on to get the best pre-built gaming PC 2023 is to get the right graphics card, also called the GPU, to play at the resolution that you want to play at. So I'm going to break out all the product recommendations down in the video description by the resolution that you can expect to game at in most titles. 4K capable pre-built gaming PCs, 1440p capable pre-built gaming PCs, and 1080p pre-built gaming PCs. Of course, a GPU that can do 4K can also do 1440p at higher frame rates, or FPS. Now, of course, some games are easier to run than others. For instance, a gaming PC that easily runs Fortnite at 1440p might need to be turned down to 1080p for a more demanding title like Call of Duty Warzone or Cyberpunk 2077. For a 4K pre-built gaming PC, I recommend you get at least an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3070 or AMD Radeon RX 6800 graphics card or better. NVIDIA RTX 4070 Ti, 4080, and 4090s, along with the AMD Radeon RX 7900 XT and 7900 XTX GPUs can now be found in pre-builts, and any of these are good for 4K or very high FPS at 1440p. For 1440p resolution, I recommend a Prebuilt Gaming PC with at least an NVIDIA RTX 3060, AMD Radeon RX 6600 XT, or the Intel A770 or A750 or better. And for 1080p, I recommend you get a Prebuilt Gaming PC with at least an NVIDIA GTX 1650 Super, not the non-Super, GTX 1660, 1660 Super or Ti, or RTX 2060. On the AMD side, an RX 6600 series GPU or higher, and of course you can still find some RX 580 pre-builts as well. Here's an important warning, so pay close attention. A lot of pre-built PCs, they're just slapped together with very weak GPUs and then they're sold as gaming PCs. You're gonna regret buying these. They're gonna have terrible performance. Yes, they're gonna be a little bit cheaper, but honestly, you will have burned your money instead of saved your money. On the NVIDIA side, these garbage graphics cards include the GT710, the GT730, the GT1030, GTX 1630, and the non-super version of the GTX 1650. On the AMD side, we want to avoid the RX 550, RX 560, RX 6400, and RX 6500 XT. I also do not recommend the Intel A380. Make sure to avoid these GPUs and stick to the recommendations we previously made. Let's talk about what CPU you need for the best Prebuilt Gaming PC 2023. Because CPUs, they've gotten so fast over the past couple years, as long as you get a modern one, it really doesn't matter in terms of FPS, except when paired with the ultra high end of GPUs like the RTX 4070 Ti or RX 7900 XT or faster. For everyone else, a modern 6-core or greater CPU is fine for mid-range gaming, and modern 4-core CPUs are okay for budget 1080p gaming. The absolute highest performance CPUs are the Ryzen 7000 CPUs like the Ryzen 7600 or upcoming Ryzen 7800 X3D, and 13th generation Intel CPUs with a K in their name like the i5 13600K or i9 13900K. Now just below that are the Ryzen 5000 CPUs like the Ryzen 5600 and non-K Intel 12th and 13th generation CPUs like the i5 12400 or i5 13400. Budget gaming PCs also might have older but still good CPUs such as the Ryzen 3600 or Intel 11th or 10th generation CPUs like the i5 11400 or i5 10400. Note that if you're doing a lot of core heavy production work in addition to gaming like video editing, Blender animation, or other professional level work, then I would recommend getting an 8-core CPU or higher. Let's talk CPU cooling and case airflow, because the worst thing that can happen is getting a great pre-built gaming PC and have it thermally throttle your performance because of a weak cooler or bad case airflow. CPU cooling, it's a little bit complicated, so here's very simple guidance. For 4 and 6 core Ryzen CPUs and Intel CPUs that do not have a K in their name, low profile downdraft style coolers are generally fine. For 8 core and bigger CPUs or Intel CPUs that have a K in their name, at a minimum, we want to see at least a budget tower air cooler or 120mm all-in-one liquid cooler, also called an AIO. For CPUs with 10 or more cores, we definitely want to see at least a 240mm AIO liquid cooler or a big air cooler, though liquid coolers are more common as they do better during the shipping process than the big air coolers. In terms of case airflow, you want to be able to see where the air is actually getting into the PC and how the hot air is being exhausted out. Side slits on the case are okay-ish, but we'd really like to see mesh front panels or glass with significant air gaps, and we'd love to see at least 2 to 3 intake fans along with 1 exhaust fan. Remember, you can get good airflow along with good aesthetics like RGB, so don't settle for a PC that isn't going to perform its best. So how much RAM do you need for the best pre-built gaming PC 2023? Well, for just gaming, you want to get 16GB of memory using dual channel. That means 2 sticks of RAM, not just 1. Now there's no gaming benefit to getting more RAM, and 16GB should be fine for basic gameplay streaming to a service like Twitch, like video editing work, rendering work, or other production tasks. For professional level creative production like video effects, I recommend at least 32GB of memory. However, you don't typically find a pre-built gaming PC with 32GB of RAM until at least the $2,000 or higher price point. But if you buy from a system integrator, you can always upgrade the memory by either buying an identical kit to the one it came with, or buying a brand new 2x16GB kit and just swapping it in. Just remember to jump into the system BIOS and activate the XMP profile for the memory. For ultra budget systems in the $700 or less category, you're probably going to get stuck with just 8GB of RAM in an OEM pre-built. So there really isn't any decision there. Now, in terms of DDR5 versus DDR4 RAM, there really isn't much for you to do, as the SI or OEM will put in the correct type. Ryzen 7000 CPUs, they're DDR5 only, while Ryzen 5000 CPUs and below, as well as 11th and 10th generation Intel CPUs, they're only DDR4. 12th and 13th generation Intel CPUs can use either DDR4 or DDR5, which is locked in depending on the motherboard installed. And I'd only really worry about this for ultra high-end pre-built gaming PCs using 13th generation Intel CPUs, where I'd recommend fast DDR5 if you can afford it without having to settle for a slower graphics card. Memory speed, it's a tricky subject. For DDR4, I recommend getting at least 3000 speed memory. I really like 3200 speed memory, and while less common, kits up to 3600 speed can be found in the higher end systems. DDR5 memory speeds start at 4800, but 5200 or 5600 speed is now more common, and the fastest kits you'll find are around 6000 speed. Let's jump into the best pre-built gaming PC product recommendation. Links are down in the video description. And remember, we continue to update that list of best deals every couple of days, so check it early and often for the latest deals. Let's jump into the best of 4K gaming PCs, and we'll start off with PCs that are also good for creators. Remember, links for everything are down in the video description. Check those out. What else do you need other than an RTX 4090 for high FPS 4K gaming and content creation? You're looking for, again, the RTX 4090 and a CPU like the i9-13900K. Ryzen 7000 series CPU would also be good in here. That being said, the 13900K is super great for content creation as well as high FPS gaming at 4K. We've got a 1TB NVMe Gen 4 SSD, 32 gigs of DDR5. Now that's 32 gigs is important if you're going to do content creation. If you're just gaming, 16 gigs is fine, but at this price point, you definitely expect 32 gigs, and you get a 420mm all-in-one liquid cooler for $37.99. Typically, this configuration has sold at $3,999, but you can click this button here to apply a $200 coupon. When there is a coupon available through Amazon, I'll leave a note to that in the video description. Overall, fantastic. I love the case. It's a Fantex P500A. We've done builds in this. In fact, my daily driver is a Fantex P500A, although I like the all snow version of this. Great airflow on it, by the way. Really slick RGB strip that I absolutely love on this case. Just a phenomenal build. And if you're looking for the creme de la creme of 4K gaming and content creation, this is it for about $3,700, $3,800. Of course, not everybody's got $4,000 to spend on a gaming PC. If you have more like $2,500 to $3,000, there are some really good options with an RTX 4080 out there and something like a Ryzen 7 7700X. This is the ABS Stratos with 32 gigabytes of DDR5, relatively fast DDR5, 5600 megahertz as well, and a 2TB NVMe. So this would be also pretty good for content creation as well as high FPS 4K gaming. Not quite as high as a 4090, of course, but still pretty good for $2,699. Now, ABS is Newegg's in-house pre-built brand. So Newegg, they're a major US retailer of PC parts. They take some of those PC parts, they assemble them as PCs, and they sell them. Overall, this is one of the brands, along with Skytech, that I do have quite a bit of trust in terms of their capability of putting together PCs and taking care of anything that might go wrong during the shipping process. So I would highly recommend this if you're looking to get into 4K gaming, but you can't quite float the $4,000. This is a good option. I just want to mention some other kinds of GPUs you might be looking for out there, something like the AMD RX 7900 XTX. Now, the 7900 XTX has performance between a 4080 and a 4090, a little closer to the 4080. All that being said, it does outcompete the 4090 in some games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, so check that out. And if you're looking for a really great deal, because AMD GPU PCs tend to be a little bit better priced than the NVIDIA ones. NVIDIA just tend to rely on their brand recognition more. I do like the Skytech Chronos setup here. First of all, I love the Skytech Chronos case. It's got great mesh in the front. This comes with an all-in-one liquid cooler as well. Really, really good setup. This is an i7-12700F. Pretty good CPU for it. 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM running at 3200 speed. Good PSU with it. 1TB NVMe for $2,299. Again, you're talking super high frame rate 4K gaming here for $2,299. So it's pretty insane to see this high FPS 4K gaming is finally coming down more in the $2,000 range. Another GPU you might be looking at for high FPS 4K gaming and super high FPS 1440p gaming is the RTX 4070 Ti. Now, this is obviously below the 4080, just below the RX 7900 XT, the XT, not the XTX. And for $1,999, this is a pretty good setup with a Ryzen 7 7700X, RTX 4070 Ti, 16 gigs of relatively fast DDR5 memory at 5600 mega transfers, 1 terabyte NVMe. It's got a 240 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler, and I love these cases. I believe this is a thermal take case that they're using, a really good airflow on it. Also, one thing I do like about Newegg is that they are very specific about the parts. They're going to tell you, you're going to get the MSI B650-P Wi-Fi motherboard. They're very specific, not usually specific on the graphics card because they're just going to use whatever they can get. That's the nature of graphics cards, but they are very, very clear about all the other parts that you're going to get in here, which I do really like. So if you're just under that $2,000 price point and you want high FPS 1440p or good FPS at 4K, this is one to check out. But Jason, you say, I just want 60 FPS at 4K, or I want higher FPS at 1440p, and I want to spend somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500. I can't quite afford those other PCs. Well, check out an OEM PC if you don't mind buying from an OEM. And I actually do like HP Omen for this reason. They allow you to now use XMP profiles. That makes upgrading memory, like you can just buy a regular kit of memory like this and plop them in there. That's really super nice about this. For $1,229, you get RTX 3070, 3080s to 3090s. If you're looking for those graphics cards, they're gone right now. They're completely gone. 3070s will give you 60 FPS at 4K or higher FPS at 1440p. You get an i7 12700, really capable CPU on this thing. And I love that they've redesigned the HP 25L case. This case used to be terrible for airflow. They completely redesigned it. I love that they took the feedback. It's now got a huge air gap right here on both sides, allows plenty of airflow in there, and they've added extra fans, which is really nice. This one comes with a 120 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. Comes with 512 gigs of SSD space. A little bigger would be nice, but it also comes with 1 terabyte hard drive space as well. I guess that does kind of make up for a little bit. And for $1,229, this is pretty cheap right now. Let's jump into 1440p capable gaming PCs. And remember to check the links down in the video description for latest pricing and availability and the best deals right now. In terms of the overall market, you're looking to spend anywhere from just about $1,000 up to about $1,400, depending on the configuration that you're looking for. For just gaming, we've got essentially 4 GPUs that we're after here. We've got the RX 6700 XT, probably the highest performance one, closely followed by the RTX 3060 Ti. That's kind of high FPS, 1440p, a little bit lower, maybe like 60 to 70 FPS, 1440p in the RTX 3060 and RX 6600 XT, or the newer 6650 XT, either one. Right now, we're taking a look at the Skytech Gaming Archangel. This is a good setup. Ryzen 5 5600X, super capable gaming CPU for this level of GPU. Got a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. That's something I really do like about Skytech. They often put in larger SSDs. 2 thumbs up for that. 16 gigs of DDR4 3200, great speed memory, and the RTX 3060 Ti. The airflow setup on this, it's basically a negative pressure setup, which works fine. It's just a little unconventional. It's got 3 exhaust fans here and only 1 intake fan. It's going to work fine. It's going to, especially for the heat level of these components, I'm not really worried about it. It does look really nice too, I have to say. And $11.99, this is actually a really good deal right now. Just a very similar setup from Skytech, just to show you that they can swap in a whole bunch of different cases. Essentially the same exact setup, just in a different case. I like the airflow on this one a little bit better. Right now it's listed at $12.99, but remember to apply that $100 coupon to make it the same price, $1,199. Great setup. This actually has intake on the side of this case and good exhaust on the back. You can also put fans on the bottom of these in-wind cases. I do really like them. $11.99 right now. These are good deals. If you don't quite have that like $1,200 to spend and you still want to get super high FPS, you can look at a couple of OEM PCs. HP, their Omen 25L, they do a really good job on. This is a Ryzen 5700G, not quite as fast as that 5600X, just slightly different architecture to it, not as much cache on the CPU. That being said, it comes with an RX 6700 XT, which is a very, very fast GPU for 1440p gaming. So overall, this is a good combo. I really do like the redesign designed Omen 25L case. It's got these nice big air gaps up here. I've checked it out. Really good airflow on it. HP tends to be a little stingier with the SSD space, 512 gigabyte SSD as opposed to the 1 terabyte. That being said, storage is so cheap right now, you can always buy extra storage and add it later. Super easy to do. This also does come with a 1 terabyte hard drive. So overall, for $1,049, if you're open to buying an OEM PC, this is a pretty good one. So coming down a couple $100 and slightly less performance, we've got an offering here from iBuyPower, CyberPower. You can often find these PCs for about $999, sometimes just about $900 as well. This has a Ryzen 5 5600, not really any difference between the 5600 and 5600X, just FYI. 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, that's good. RTX 3060, yay, as well as a 500 gigabyte SSD. I wish it was a little bit bigger, but obviously you're also paying less money for it. And again, storage has gotten super cheap. It's super easy to add storage. We have a whole video on how to upgrade it if you want to check that out. I'm not a huge fan of the airflow on these cases. That being said, for these components like a 5600 and RTX 3060, doesn't matter as much. This will be absolutely sufficient. It's got a kind of typical downdraft cooler as well. Again, over at Best Buy right now for $999. Here's one I like a little bit better for exactly the same price right now as I'm filming this. This is the Skytech Chronos. Again, I love the Chronos setup. I love the mesh on the front. I love the fact that they include a 4 heat pipe tower air cooler in this as well. 2 thumbs up on that. And you're going to get 1 terabyte NVMe as opposed to 500 gigabytes, which is really, really good. Now, this is using the RX 6600 XT. That's how they save some money on it, because while it has the same performance as the RTX 3060, AMD charges a lot less for the 6600 XT than NVIDIA charges for the 3060s. That's really how they're able to add all these other components and kind of beef up the system while providing the same level of performance. So another system I really, really do like. Let's jump into 1080p capable gaming PCs. Remember, anything we've already looked at, they can do 1080p at high frame rate. So we're just looking at GPUs that can really only do 1080p. Still good gaming PCs out there. Check the links down in the video description for current pricing and the latest deals that we're recommending. Right now, as the market sits, as I'm filming this, you're looking to spend about $900 down to about $650, but there's a big performance gap between those two. Primarily, it's focused around, are you gonna get 16 gigabytes of memory or not? Because the GPUs here, we've got, like, for instance, this Skytech Nebula. We've got the RTX 3050. Good 1080p GPU. Performs about the same as the GTX 1660 Super, 1660 Ti, slightly better than the just vanilla version of the 1660. If we can find an RTX 2060, that would be phenomenal. However, not seeing a lot of those anymore. It looks like the 2060 is completely gone off the market at this point. This has an i3 1200F, very capable 4-core, 8-thread CPU, modern CPU, very, very fast for gaming, especially at this GPU level. 500 gig NVMe SSD and 16 gigs of RAM at 3200. Now, this is also an SI, it should be easier to upgrade. I'm not a huge fan of the 92 millimeter air cooler. That being said, this is a i3, does not require much cooling, and the ventilation on this case is phenomenal. So I'm not worried about the cooling at all. This looks like a great deal. Remember to apply that $50 coupon at the bottom to get it for $849. That's about what you're looking to spend for this level of performance. On the AMD GPU side, we have the RX 6600 super capable 1080p GPU. Honestly, can't even play mini games at 1440p. Much faster than the RTX 3050 or the GTX 1660 series. $899, so you'll pay about another $50. So this is about the $900 price point. This has an Intel i5 11400F. Very good CPU. I'm not enthralled that they're using the stock cooler on it. It's probably fine in this setup. This actually has pretty good airflow throughout. 500 gigabyte SSD, 16 gigs of RAM at 3200 speed, 600 watt PSU. This is a pretty good PC if you're looking for those higher FPS 1080p type games and you can't quite afford going up to a more performative PC. Another alternative out there is you can get something like the older Asus ROG Strix, the GL10 case. I don't love these cases for their airflow. This is a completely solid panel. There is an air gap here. There's a fan in the rear. That being said, Ryzen 5 3600X and a GTX 1660 Ti, not really going to give you much problems in terms of the overall heat load. We go with 16 gigs of RAM. They don't list the speed. That's often the case at this price point. 512 gigabytes of NVMe SSD storage. All that's pretty good for $820, especially this often it goes down lower than $800. I'd definitely consider it that price point. But Jason, what do I do if I've only got about $650 to spend? What do you recommend? Well, honestly, we're now in the OEM land from somebody like HP, and HP's got a pretty good model here, the HP 15L. Now, this is an i5 12400, very capable CPU, and a GTX 1660 Super. That's really, really good. And you see, Jason, it's only got 8 gigabytes of RAM. Isn't that a problem? No, not in this case in terms of the GPU performance, because there's actually 2 sticks of 4 gigabytes. That's very unusual. And the nice thing about this is you can actually customize these PCs. If you want to spend another $70, so you bring this up to about $720, you can add 16 gigs of RAM. And if you're going to do that, I would recommend doing that. These are not XMP timings. These are not going to be able to easily be upgraded with an off-the-shelf RAM kit like anyone else would use. You're going to have to get a more specialized one. And honestly, for $720, you're getting a very performative gaming PC. Remember to check out those links down in the video description for all the products we talked about, and we do keep those links updated every couple of days with the best deal. If you got value out of the video, give it a like, makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. And we'll catch you on the next one.